6:38. Now, more motorists are being caught on camera and fined for doing things like entering a yellow box or driving in a bus lane. Councils say that they issue tickets and penalties to keep the traffic flowing smoothly because there are simply more cars on the road.
But private emails obtained by the BBC's Panorama programme reveal a rather different story, with officials congratulating each other on the number of tickets issued. We'll discuss this in a moment. First, this report from Adam Shaw.
As traffic gets worse, councils are finding new ways of fining motorists by using CCTV. Many suspect they are motivated by making money rather than just trying to improve traffic, an accusation the councils hotly deny. Welcome to the Hammersmith hotspot, Bagley's Lane Junction, where 29,000 motorists were fined in the year to March, generating an income of £2 million.
This is the worst box junction in London.
When I've been caught twice on this one.
After getting a ticket at Bagley's Lane, local resident Andrew Ash started a campaign to find out why.
After I got caught, I wrote to the council using the Freedom of Information Act. To begin with, they refused to give me any information. And then I persevered and I got a treasure trove of internal council documents, emails between senior officers.
Another record for us. Well done all.
Another good month last month. That's despite the system problems we had, so well done everyone.
Hammersmith and Fulham describe these remarks as office banter, which do not demonstrate a culture of revenue raising. And in Reading, the council is unapologetic about issuing more bus lane tickets than anywhere else in Britain.
This allegation that somehow we put in cameras to raise money is nonsense. We put in cameras so that buses like that run on time and that bus lanes do what they say.
Bristol is one of 20 councils lobbying to gain the traffic fining powers of London. A transport service for the disabled fears it could be hit with more tickets. Bristol Council allows this minibus into its bus lanes, but not this van carrying people in wheelchairs, so they have to sit in the queue or the company risks a fine.
Well, for the last 2 years we've paid about £400 in fines, and in fact in the last 2 months we've paid £90 in 3 fines.
Back in London, my attempt to help motorists avoid fines at Bagley's Lane with clearer signs didn't last long. Hammersmith told me to take them down, and it was soon back to normal at the junction nicknamed the Money Box. Adam Shaw, BBC News.
Well, to discuss this, we're joined by motoring lawyer Jeanette Miller and Inspector Paul Rowe, who's a traffic policeman. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
When you look at that last shot in that package, Jeanette, you see it's a big box.
It is.
And you can't help feeling it's been made bigger just to trap more motorists. I mean, that would be the suspicion, but is that your view?
Well, the programme reveals this evening quite a number of people have been caught in that particular box. And sadly, it seems as though revenue raising is a real motivation behind the traffic enforcement in that local authority. Obviously, the council deny that. But the concerns that this programme raises is really more widespread than just this particular local authority. The local authorities are entrusted to enforce the free flow of traffic. But there's a major conflict between that motivation of what they're supposed to be doing and what's actually happening. Traffic enforcement has produced an incredibly financially buoyant industry. 1.3 billion is what has been raised in revenue from parking and traffic enforcement. Yet the local authority are supposed to be reducing that revenue. There is a conflict between what they're supposed to be doing
Well,
there.
Inspector Paul Rowe, you're the head of the Serious Collision Investigation Unit at Greater Manchester Police.
Correct,
so
yes.
obviously you have an interest in preventing accidents and making sure drivers drive safely. And all drivers would appreciate that. But having to pay out so much money for what they see as sort of entrapment in some
Well, first of all, we're
cases
talking
is a
about London.
concern.
We're not talking about the rest of the UK, albeit it's looking as though it's going to be rolled out through a number of cities, in Manchester being one of them. Having researched it a little bit from yesterday, I have to say that if we're going to look at the free flow of traffic, perhaps the box junction in this case is not the exact answer, and perhaps they need to look at the phasing of the traffic lights. There are other issues rather than just putting a box junction in and think it will solve all.
So because the motivation, as Jeanette was saying, you would imagine should be that driving is made safer rather than more people are fined.
There's more people using the road. There's more, be it pedestrians or pedal cyclists or the traffic themselves. More people are using the road. We've all got to share it. I think what we've got to look at is the free flow and education of motorists. So we can look at either their attitude or the skill. Is it their attitude that's put them in the box junction, or is it the skill?
Jeanette, it's fairly simple, isn't it? If you break the rules, you get fined. So don't break the rule and you don't get fined. That's the other way of looking at it, isn't it?
That is a way of looking at it. But sadly, what seems to be happening is where there are these hotspots or spikes in penalty charge notices or moving traffic contraventions being issued, rather than a local authority saying, oh, hang on a second, lots of people seem to be breaking the rules here. Are the signs in place adequate? Is the box junction appropriate? They're not doing that. They're saying, they're rubbing their hands with glee in some instances and saying, oh great, we've got more revenue here. And that's the problem. There isn't any independent regulator of those local authorities that are issuing these penalty charge notices. So to some extent, they're a law unto themselves. They don't need to answer to anybody. And if you appeal, then that appeal decision, yes, you might be successful, but it's not binding on the local authority to stop issuing similar notices.
You say, Paul, that it's a matter of either attitude or skill, but in some cases, it's a matter of confusion. I mean, particularly with bus lanes, some of them start in the middle of a road and seem to have no sort of logic or rationale.
I think everybody accepts the long bus lane that we've got, say, on one of the major routes in, because the bus needs to keep on time.
Yeah.
People pay and they want to get there, and if it need be, a little bit quicker than the normal motorist. However, some of the short bus routes that we've got are put there possibly for a reason that people don't see, i.e. the bus can't get out because of the road structure, or it needs to be out and we sort of across and onto the right-hand lane. So if we reduce the traffic to one, the bus has got a chance of moving. So each one needs to be looked at on its merits. But I have to say, if we had a collision area that had as many offences in one area, in Manchester, we would certainly have a meeting with the local authority at this moment in time and delay it. But if we actually go to
try and sort it out, you mean?
But if it actually goes over to the local authority, we very rarely have an input.
Jeanette, just quickly, if you were to have a regulator of what motoring fines from local councils, that is more expense, more bureaucracy. Councils might say we're going to have to find more people to pay for it.
I think the biggest issue there, you might be right there, but I think the biggest issue is the huge reduction there would be in the revenue that's raised from the notices being issued in the first place. And I suspect that's probably why this issue has been allowed to persist for so long. Because where's the money going to come from if all of a sudden that revenue stream is significantly reduced?
All right. Jeanette and Paul, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you again in an hour's time, so you may have a thought on that.
Ever so slightly.
As soon as we start talking about an issue like that, it gets people hot under the collar. Either way, and you can watch Panorama Traffic Fines Highway Robbery tonight at 7:30 on BBC One. 7:36. More motorists are being caught on camera and fined for doing things like entering a yellow box or driving in a bus lane. Councils say they issue tickets to keep the traffic flowing smoothly and because there are simply more cars on the road.
But private emails obtained by the BBC's Panorama programme reveal a rather different story, with officials congratulating each other on the number of tickets that have been issued. We'll discuss this in a moment. First, this report from Adam Shaw.
As traffic gets worse, councils are finding new ways of fining motorists by using CCTV. Many suspect they are motivated by making money rather than just trying to improve traffic, an accusation the councils hotly deny. Welcome to the Hammersmith hotspot, Bagley's Lane Junction, where 29,000 motorists were fined in the year to March, generating an income of £2 million.
This is the worst box junction in London.
When I've been caught twice on this one.
After getting a ticket at Bagley's Lane, local resident Andrew Ash started a campaign to find out why.
I've been done 4 times.
After I got caught, I wrote to the council using the Freedom of Information Act. To begin with, they refused to give me any information. And then I persevered and I got a treasure trove of internal council documents, emails between senior officers.
Another record for us. Well done all.
Another good month last month. That's despite the system problems we had, so well done everyone.
Hammersmith and Fulham describe these remarks as office banter, which do not demonstrate a culture of revenue raising. And in Reading, the council is unapologetic about issuing more bus lane tickets than anywhere else in Britain.
This allegation that somehow we put in cameras to raise money is nonsense. We put in cameras so that buses like that run on time and that bus lanes do what they say.
Bristol is one of 20 councils lobbying to gain the traffic fining powers of London. A transport service for the disabled fears it could be hit with more tickets. Bristol Council allows this minibus into its bus lanes, but not this van carrying people in wheelchairs, so they have to sit in the queue or the company risks a fine.
Well, for the last 2 years we've paid about £400 in fines, and in fact in the last 2 months we've paid £90 in 3 fines.
Back in London, my attempt to help motorists avoid fines at Bagley's Lane with clearer signs didn't last long. Hammersmith told me to take them down, and it was soon back to normal at the junction nicknamed the Money Box. Adam Shaw, BBC News.
Well, to discuss this, we're joined by the motoring lawyer Jeanette Miller and Inspector Paul Rowe, who's a traffic policeman. Good morning to you both.
Morning.
Well, that money box is a big money box, isn't it? Are councils using traffic regulations as cash cows, in your view, Jeanette?
I think there are some local authorities that are really trying to be clear that they're not doing that, but sadly there are a number of local authorities who I think are conflicted between their obligation to ensure the free flow of traffic and to enforce traffic and parking regulations and revenue raising. This industry raises 1.3 billion a year. Yet these local authorities, who are clearly desperately in need of this money in some respects, are entrusted to reduce that, so that there is a conflict between what they're supposed to be doing and what's actually happening.
There's also, isn't there, Paul, an issue of proportionality. I mean, for instance, Emily writes in to say that she was fined for overrunning 3 minutes on a 2.5-hour parking ticket, which cost her £50. Now, some people might think, well, shouldn't have overrun, but others might think £50 for a couple of minutes overrun seems like quite a lot of money when the problem wasn't that serious.
It depends on the park. I mean, I don't know about the case specifically, but if it is in an area where they need the road clear, then it might well be. If we're talking about an off-road car parking area, then that would be for the local authority. What we've got the problem here is that parking has been, if you want, deregularised into the local authority to deal with, and what concerns are being raised now is to how, when it comes out from London, which it will be, to other areas, how sort of the other areas are going to actually deal with incidents like the box junction that we're talking about.
Obviously, you're not in charge of making these big decisions, but would it be more efficient and possibly fairer if enforcing these regulations was not the responsibility of local authorities, but the police?
Well, the police hand it over to the local authority, as they have done with the parking areas. I mean, in Manchester, we do the only area we really regulate for parking would be around Manchester Airport. That's for obvious reasons, security and so forth. But everything else is by the local authority. I think what we've got to look, and certainly this case here, it's been highlighted, and I would consider that really the local authority need to reconsider, have a look at it totally, and even probably change the traffic lights.
Let me put that same question to you then, Jeanette. Would the police operate it more fairly, do you think, if they were responsible for it?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure there would be such a zealous attitude towards raising revenue. What the Panorama show discovers is that there are targets, people are being congratulated for achieving targets. It's completely contrary to what the local authority should be doing.
And what people are concerned about, who are getting in touch this morning, is that the balance seems in some cases to be wrong, that the balance should be about preventing, serious collisions, which is an area that you're involved in regulating, rather than raising money. And if there is an area where there is a lot of money being raised, then the focus should be on how to make that safer rather than how to make it more
I couldn't
lucrative.
agree more. And the other thing is to educate the public as well. I mean, we're talking about box control, the regulations, if you want, for the box junction. But we've also got others. We've got cyclists, we've got pedestrians, telling them where to cross, how the cyclists to have lights on at night and so forth. It's all the road users trying to use that little bit of space we've got.
I mean, some people getting in touch this morning saying, well, you know, you take your chances if you go on the road. And Bab says if you're doing wrong, then you have to pay the price. People will just abuse the system if there's no punishment.
Well, if I can respond to that, I agree to some extent. But where there are misleading signs, where the road layout is not clear, then how is a motorist who isn't familiar with the area, for example, supposed to ensure that they are compliant with the road? How are they supposed to avoid those contraventions? And I would say that the vast majority do not deliberately go out driving intending to commit a moving traffic contravention or a parking contravention. They go out, and a lot of people are innocently causing or receiving the penalty charge notices. And the problem, as you say, is where there's a spike, there's a clear problem with lots of people being issued with tickets. Those problems are not being investigated as you would expect to see how they can be resolved. It's a case of cashing in for the local authority.
All right, thanks very much indeed, Jeanette. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Coming up to 7:45. Oh, we should say you can watch Panorama Traffic Fines, Highway Robbery tonight, 7:30 BBC One.